All 16 Kingslayers, ranked from bad to worst. Game of Thrones has almost always projected only Jamie Lannister as a Kingslayer. But you know what? There have been 5 other confirmed Kingslayers, who deserve much more hate than Jamie. Take Lady Olenna and Petyr Baelish, for instance. Then there's Roose, Bolton, and Walder Frey, who killed the king in the north, and the list pretty much goes on. Apart from the Kingslayers in the HBO show, Westerosi history is filled with at least 10 more Kingslayers. And in this video, we're going to explore all 16 Kingslayers and rank them from bad to worst. Without extending the intro any longer, let's begin. At number 1, we have Jamie Lannister. Across the length and breadth of Game of Thrones, Jamie was chastised and ridiculed for kingslaying. But one must agree that he was one of the most relatable characters across the entire saga, given we ignore a bit of his love affairs. In the last phase of Robert's rebellion, Ned Stark was pacing towards King's Landing. Prince Rhaegar was dead, and Lord Tywin Lannister had already reached the gates of King's Landing with an army 12,000 strong. He was here for his son, Jamie, who Tywin believed was at risk of being killed by the Mad King. And if not, he feared that Jamie might do something rash. And guess what? The father's fears became true. Back in King's Landing, Viserys advised Aerys against opening the gates of King's Landing. The traitor Pycelle convinced the king to open the gates, saying that Tywin had brought his 12,000 men to defend the king. As soon as the gates were opened, Tywin began the sack of King's Landing. Consequently, Jamie was asked by Aerys through a messenger to bring Tywin's head to prove his loyalty to the crown. Meanwhile, Jamie learnt that Aerys, with the help of Rossart, the pyromancer, wanted to destroy King's Landing. The Kingsguard first killed Rossart to stop him from doing what Cersei would do years later. Next, he went to the king himself, holed him, and killed his king with a single slash across the throat, thereby becoming the Kingslayer, and also preventing Aerys from commanding other pyromancers from burning the city. Later, Jamie asked Sir Ellis Westerling and Lord Roland Cracall, who had just entered the throne room, to inform everyone that the king was dead, so the fighting was to be stopped, and also that anyone who yielded should be spared. He then seated himself on the throne to see who claimed it, and yielded it to Eddard Stark, who came to claim the throne for Robert Baratheon. And Jamie was informally named Kingslayer at Robert's coronation feast. You see, for all his vices, Jamie stood with his king until the moment the Mad King became really mad, wanting to rain fire and burn the city into a darkness from which it could never really recover. And that's why Jamie is the least evil of all the 4 Kingslayers. But the same cannot be said about the next entry in our list. Cersei Lannister and The Hunt. I hate to admit, but the deaths of Ned Stark and King Robert were kinda sorta the result of 2 chain reactions started by their own wives. So, the relationship between the Starks and the Lannisters was never friendly. When Bran fell from the tower, the Starks suspected Tyrion was behind it, and Lady Catelyn, as soon as she got the opportunity, kidnapped Tyrion. This ultimately led to the bloody brawl between Jamie and Ned Stark. Robert, instead of using his authority to diffuse the tensions between the 2 most powerful houses in Westeros, instead chose to leave the capital for a hunt in the Kingswood. Cersei, who was always unhappy with Robert, decided this was it. She colluded with her Lancel Lannister, henchman and keep, to ensure that Robert keeps drinking on the trip. She knew that Robert would not have allowed anyone else to come between him and his game, and it worked. King Robert Baratheon was fatally injured by a boar. Meanwhile, Ned learnt about the true lineage of Cersei's children, and very foolishly, blinded by his self-righteousness and honor, gave Cersei the option to leave the capital. Of course, we all know what happened. This makes Cersei way more evil than her brother and lover. He did the kingslaying mostly to save the capital, but Cersei, she did it because she just hated Robert and sought power, and the ones in the next entry bypassed even Cersei. Olenna Redwine, Petyr Baelish, and the Purple Wedding. Let's be honest, King Joffrey Baratheon had it coming, but the how and the who behind his death, that part is what led to anarchy spreading over Westeros. At the infamous Purple Wedding, the Crown Prince keeled over mid-toast, coughing, gagging, and gasping in his mother's arms. Right before dying, he pointed a shaking finger straight at Tyrion. Cersei didn't need any more convincing. Her long-standing hatred for her younger brother did the rest. Tyrion's position didn't help. He was Joffrey's reluctant cupbearer, who was humiliated and mocked in front of everyone. When the poison kicked in, it looked like an open and shut case. He had the motive, he had the means, and he definitely didn't have many allies at court. But the real plot was obviously a long con. Olenna Tyrell partnered with Littlefinger to take Joffrey off the board. She saw what marrying her granddaughter to a monster would lead to, and she wasn't about to let that happen. The poison came courtesy of a necklace gifted to Sansa by Dontos Hollard in the show, and a hairnet gifted to her by Littlefinger in the books. Either way, it was laced with one missing gem that contained the poison called Strangler. Olenna slipped it into Joffrey's wine when the pigeons came out of the pie. It's a rare moment where someone like Olenna Tyrell, underestimated and smiling sweetly, executes one of the most precise takedowns in Westerosi history. That too, right under everyone's nose. But what makes her worse than Cersei is that she killed a man on his wedding day, and in such brutal fashion. Also, for all his vices, Joffrey was still a young boy, if not a child. Roose Bolton and Walder Frey at the Red Wedding. What makes Walder Frey and Roose Bolton the most despicable Kingslayers in Westeros isn't just the betrayal. It's how cold, calculated, and personal it was. They dressed it up as hospitality, smiled through the ceremony, then butchered their guests during the wedding feast. Robb Stark, the king in the north, walked into the twins expecting an uneasy alliance, but an alliance nonetheless. He knew Lord Frey was bitter over the broken betrothal, but he honored the man's house with Edmure Tully's marriage to Rosalind Frey. The terms seemed mended, but Walder Frey had already decided to trade old grudges for new power, and Roose Bolton, who had already accepted the Lannisters' offer to become Warden of the North, had every reason to betray his king, Robb Stark. Together, they used the sacred tradition of guest right as the stage for their massacre. The betrayal started after Edmure and Rosalind were led away. Black Walder closed the hall doors. The musicians struck up the Rains of Castamere. Roose and his men, already seated in sober, waited for the cue. Then it came. Talisa Stark was the first to die, stabbed in the womb by Lothar Frey, her unborn child murdered before she could even react. Robb took bolt after bolt from crossbows. Outside, northern soldiers, drunk and unarmed, were slaughtered in their tents. Even Robb's direwolf was executed with crossbows, and young Arya saw it happen. Catelyn tried to salvage something from the bloodbath. She held joyous Frey hostage, begging Walder to let Robb go, and that was that. Roose stepped forward, muttered, "The Lannisters send their regards," and buried his blade in Robb's heart. Catelyn kept her promise. She slit the young girl's throat, wailed, then stood frozen as Black Walder opened her own neck. It wasn't just murder, it was the cold-blooded annihilation of House Stark, served with wine and applause. So these were the 6 confirmed Kingslayers, but there have been 10 others who have been suspected of kingslaying or killed prospective kings. Let's take a look at them. I'm not including the names of Tyrion and Lady Brienne because their names were cleared in the show itself. Aegon IV Targaryen. Aegon IV Targaryen is widely suspected to have hastened his father's death. Viserys II had barely begun his rule when he suddenly died, and although no one accused Aegon for a decade, many believed Aegon poisoned him to claim the crown. Number 2. Viserys II. Turnabout is fair play in Targaryen politics. Viserys II, the one later suspected by Aegon IV of murder, had himself been accused of killing Baelor the Blessed, his nephew. Baelor died after a long fast, and although some whispered of poison, most agree Viserys likely had no hand in it. Number 3. Olenna Costane. Then there's Olenna Costane, one of Aegor the Cruel's black brides. Some believe she ended her monstrous husband by dragging his wrists across the Iron Throne's blades, and staged it as suicide. Others suggest a Kingsguard knight did it. There's also the theory that one of the builders of the Red Keep came back for revenge. You see, After Maegor finished the construction of the Red Keep, he invited all the builders for a feast and provided them with food, wine, and women. But at the end of the 3-day feast, he killed all the builders. On the contrary, a few even say the Iron Throne itself rejected Maegor and killed the king who was unfit to sit on it. Number 4. Euron Greyjoy. Euron Greyjoy's claim to the Seastone chair came too easily after his brother Balon fell from a bridge during a storm. Most suspect Euron orchestrated the death, and the show confirms it. And if the prophecies hold weight, then he may have paid a faceless man to get the job done. Number 5. Diles Belgrave. Okay, beware. This one is a spoiler for House of the Dragon. You have been warned. During the dying days of Aegon II Targaryen, rumors circled the Red Keep. Giles Belgrave, sworn sword of the Kingsguard, was executed for the crime, either for slipping poison into the king's wine or for failing to protect him. Some pointed fingers at Ummet, the food taster, but others believed the real hand behind it all was Lord Larys Strong, the man who always saw opportunity in chaos. Number 6. Visenya Targaryen. The old Targaryen women weren't above suspicion either. Visenya Targaryen, sister-wife to Aegon the Conqueror, supposedly poisoned her nephew King Aenys to clear the way for her own son, Maegor. Aenys had proved too weak for the throne, and Visenya may have decided Westeros needed a stronger hand. Number 7. Aegon II. Aegon II's murder of his half-sister Rhaenyra was less subtle. He had her fed to his dragon. While that earned him the title of Kingslayer, their civil war had already stripped both of any familial bond. Each viewed the other as a usurper. Number 8. Khal Drogo. Across the narrow sea, Khal Drogo fulfilled Viserys Targaryen's dream of a golden crown. Literally. When Viserys demanded his crown in front of a Dothraki horde, Drogo gave it to him, molten gold, poured over his head. Number 9. Stannis Baratheon. Stannis Baratheon's shadow assassin killed his brother Renly, removing another contender for the throne. Whether Stannis fully understood what Melisandre was doing with his seed is unclear. Still, Renly had no plans to yield, and neither did Stannis. Number 10. Unnamed Lord Stark. And finally, there's the Stark tale. Lord Stark, a descendant of Brandon the Daughterless, unknowingly killed Bael the Bard, his own father, after finding him as the king beyond the wall. That was no war, no coup, just another story of Westeros where blood calls to blood, and no one walks away clean. That was all in this one, guys. I hope you liked what we did here. If you have got suggestions, corrections, or anything else, let me know in the comments, and I will look into the same. Stay safe, and have a good one.